The Mistress of Magnetism, the Lady of Attraction. This is Mag, the magnetic Warframe. Rounding out our trio, Mag is the third of the starter frames. Her abilities focus on preventing enemies from attacking and repositioning them as she pleases. She's the closest thing I can think of to a Jedi in this game. Mag's passive attracts items to her within 8 meters for easier collection. This passive does not stack with companion mods, which have better effects on upgrades, such as Vacuum or Fetch. If you don't have these mods, it can be fairly useful for farming, but less so once you do have them. Reaching out at a distance, Pull ragdolls enemies and pulls them into a ball in front of Mag, dealing magnetic damage. While ragdolled, enemies are vulnerable to ground finishers, leading to multiple enemies being struck at once. Because of its low energy cost as a first ability, Pull can be a rather useful ability for preventing enemies from attacking, as well as closing the distance. Magnetism is actually an ability that has 2 different effects, depending if you tap or hold the ability button. Tapping Magnetize on an enemy creates a magnetic bubble around them. This bubble pulls in other enemies to its center. While active, any projectiles fired by allies or enemies into the bubble strikes any enemies stuck within the bubble's effects, with increased damage at its center. Once Magnetize's duration runs out, the bubble collapses and causes a small explosion to enemies in the vicinity, dealing a large amount of blast damage. Holding Magnetize will generate a bubble of magnetism within Mag's own hands. This bubble catches enemy projectiles, holding on to the damage. Once Magnetize's duration runs out, or it's activated again, Mag throws all held bullets at enemies in front of her, with damage increasing the more damage is prevented. Both effects of Magnetize can help prevent Mag and her allies from taking damage, while dealing it to the enemies. This makes it a very good ability for enhancing gunplay, both for Mag and her allies. Polarize sends out a wave in a large area, centered on Mag's casting position, removing armor and shields from enemies, and turning it into polarizing shards. Polarized shards can be picked up by Mag and orbit her, dealing puncture and slash damage to nearby enemies. They can also be used with Magnetize to deal increased damage to enemies. Polarize is a very effective way to remove armor from enemies like Grineer, and make them easier to deal with. Unleashing her full magnetic might, Crush lifts enemies into the air, crushing them and throwing them back to the earth, dealing high magnetic damage. Mag and her allies will also gain shields for each enemy damaged by the attack, going into overshields if gaining more shields beyond their maximum. Enemies affected by Magnetize take bonus magnetic damage when affected by Crush. At rank 30, Mag has 280 HP, 555 shields, 105 armor, and 190 energy. She has a Madurai aura slot and 2 Neramon polarities. Mag Prime has an additional 90 HP, 30 more shields, 75 more energy, and an additional Madurai polarity. As the final starter frame, Mag is able to be picked up at the start of your journey. If you didn't choose her, she can also be acquired at the Sergeant Assassination mission on Phobos, with her primary blueprint being purchased from the market. Let's see her in action one more time. Are you prepared to attract challenge, Tenno?